Welcome in to another episode of Gridiron Grind. Creta and Jimmy here live together.
Same room.
In the man cave.
Same room.
In the man cave. Wanted to get an episode out, talk about the national championship game. It's happening Monday. And a little bit of a surprise. We did this show, a week and a half ago, and we're pretty confident it's going to be Michigan and Georgia. And TCU rolls over Michigan. I was a little shocked by that beforehand, but watching the game, TCU was a better team, I thought. I think Michigan, they did a lot of stuff to blow that game. They threw 2 pick sixes. They had goal to go twice and scored 0 points. So, I mean, it was there for Michigan, but TCU I thought was a more physical team. Mm-hmm. They were the more composed team. I thought TCU was the better team. And what did they end up beating by? Was it a touchdown, 8 points? So TCU gets the win, and then Georgia over Ohio State. Holy cow, Ohio State looked pretty good. C.J. Stroud might have locked up the number 1 quarterback taken off the board. He looked really good. Georgia, though, Georgia, come from behind, and so you got TCU and Georgia in the national championship. Whoever would have thought it was like 200-1 for TCU to win a national championship. Whoever would have thought TCU, little private school from Fort Worth, is going to play for a national championship.
Yeah, someone somewhere I bet has it down, probably some alumni. But I tell you, the TCU Michigan game, they had to listen to us for weeks talking about how they weren't physical.
Yeah.
And K-State, especially after that K-State game, about how they were just going to get rolled over. And I tell you what, TCU came out and punched Michigan in the mouth. And say what you want about the officiating, end of the day, you got to overcome whatever obstacles are in front of you. Michigan just could not get it done. TCU was just too much. TCU jumped out and, like I said, just socked Michigan in the face. And then it was like, whoa, Michigan's playing comeback the entire time. Meanwhile, TCU's got the momentum rolling. Boom, 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 touchdown, boom, 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 score. So I'm going, that was Michigan. Just, I mean, they fought hard, but like just too big of a mountain to overcome when TCU's playing like that. And then, like you and I talked about, I said, this Ohio State-Georgia game, Ohio State is dangerous getting the second chance. Just like in 14 when they get in there, they jump. And I told you that. I said they're going to win the national championship if they get in. They're that dangerous. And we talked about I would not be surprised if this was a close game because I don't think Georgia faced an offense as prolific as Ohio State's. And it showed Ohio State was really, I mean, literally, I don't know what went wrong on the kick. I've tried to analyze. I've tried to find a definitive article. I can't find it. I don't know if it's hold. I've seen something about the plant foot being too far in. I don't know. The holder looked like he was taking it pretty rough, worse than the kicker did. So
saw that.
But that game did not surprise me with it being that close. But now, like you said, we've got a fantastic national championship. In my opinion, Georgia, a perennial favorite, 13.5 down to 13 points now against TCU. Private school, like you said, from little old Fort Worth, Texas. And I tell you what, it's hard not to, depending on what side of the fence you're on, right? If you're just watching it, just no allegiance, it's kind of hard not to root for TCU because of the underdog.
Yeah.
But
well, you got to think about it. When in football, this just doesn't, in college football,
right?
What TCU's doing, this just doesn't happen in college football. It happens in basketball. It happens in baseball. But we never get any kind of underdog, especially preseason. TCU picked 7th preseason in their conference. They were 5-7 last year. It doesn't happen in college football. It definitely hadn't happened in the playoff. Didn't happen in the BCS era.
That's why they got rid of the BCS, was because TCU goes undefeated.
Yeah.
Boise State, Hawaii, all these teams that were nobodies. And they got rid of the BCS. And so now we're finally getting what they promised us with the playoff system is, the underdog.
And you got to think
getting a shot.
10 years ago, the TCU has only been a Power 5 team for 10 years. Mm-hmm. They came to the Big 12 in 2012. So in 2011, they were in the Mountain West, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, so they've only been a Power 5 school for 10 years. And it's just crazy. I think, this is fascinating how this has happened. And I'm glad. I'm all for more parity in college football. But like basketball, it happens all the time. You get Cinderellas, teams make it to the Final Four.
University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
There you go.
Seed upsets Virginia.
I mean, it happens every year in basketball. You're gonna have
Florida Gulf Coast, George Mason, Butler,
VMI, Butler,
VCU, and Shaka was there.
Or VCU, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
VCU, Shaka made the Final Four. Butler played for
Chicago, Sister Mary.
Oh, Loyola. I mean, it happens in basketball all the time. Baseball. Fresno State won a national championship not too long ago. Well, I think back when we were in college. That's like over 10 years ago. But they won. But Coastal Carolina won the national championship in baseball not too long ago. So, I mean, it happens. It happens in baseball and basketball. Just never happens in football. And I think that is just it's remarkable. But also, if you just look at the TCU team, I mean, they're good. They got a senior quarterback who's playing phenomenal football. The receiving core is, I mean, they got 4 or 5 dudes who can play. They got a big offensive line. They got 2 really good running backs. And their defense is, I mean, they tackle really well. And they are very deceptive. And we were talking about this earlier. They run that, what's they call the 3-3-5 flyover defense. But it really operates like a 5-2 in a way, because the 3 down linemen are more like interior defensive linemen, and the 3 linebackers, the 2 on the outside, really operate like defensive ends. And they kind of try to misidentify you and get you to identify your blocking scheme. And as soon as you snap the ball and they see their reads, they come crashing in like they're a defensive end when you run away from them. And Michigan was having a lot of problem blocking D Winter, because he would just identify. They wouldn't block him like he's a defensive end. They blocked him, or they wouldn't block him thinking he's an off-ball linebacker, run away from him. But he would come crashing in so hard, he played it more like a weak side defensive end, and he had a game of his life. Pick 6 and had like 13 tackles. So, I mean, it's a lot tougher to run the ball on this flyover defense that they run in the Big 12. And I think TCU is going to – I mean, I think they're going to be ready to go. I'm surprised it's almost 2 touchdown spread.
Yeah.
Because especially with the receivers that TCU has, I wouldn't say they're as good as Ohio State's receivers, and I don't think Max Duggan is as good of a passer as C.J. Stroud, but Duggan has been very capable all year. Quentin Johnson is, I think, the best receiver in the country, and after Ohio State lit up Georgia, I mean, you could see TCU having a field day with that Georgia secondary. That's Georgia's weakness.
Yeah, and like you said, with that defensive formation TCU runs, Michigan had to be listening to us too, talking about how they were just going to bull them over.
Yeah.
And, they talked about it all week, how physical they were. You heard them, and they were going to be so physical with TCU. And Georgia has got to be thinking the same way. However, I think Kirby Smart and those guys, Michigan, sorry it had to be you if you're a Michigan fan, but Georgia is probably going to look at what Michigan did against TCU, tweak it, and try to get a guy, like you said, getting over here. Okay, if this guy comes, we got to have a guy here. I think Georgia, like I said, is going to take that blueprint that TCU did and adapt it to what they do. Now, Georgia's offensive line, I think, is better than Michigan's offensive line. I think just Georgia.
Maybe so.
I think Georgia's the better team, but I think TCU is electric, and I think it's going to be a heck of a game, like you said. And like what we were talking about with Ohio State, TCU is fast. They've got speed.
Yeah.
And if Georgia's not careful, they're going to fall in the same trap Michigan did. And TCU is going to come out, hit them a couple times, like I say, punch them in the mouth. And then Georgia's going to be looking at a 14, maybe a 10-point deficit and go, oh, crap. And now you've got Stetson Bennett, who doesn't throw like we've talked about. He does not C.J. Stroud. He's not a Bryce Young. He's not going to throw it. You don't need him passing for 400 yards. If I have to leave it up to Stetson Bennett to beat us, okay, I would take those chances. If he's got to throw for 400 to win,
well,
perfect.
I don't know. I see it playing out that way. I really feel like TCU, they're not going to shut Georgia's running down, but I think Georgia is going to be. It's not going to be easy to run the football. I think they'll be able to run the football, but I think they're going to be in some 3rd and longs like they were against Ohio State, and it's going to be on Stetson Bennett's shoulders a lot. I can see that happening. Just like Michigan did. Michigan couldn't run the ball. Michigan's offensive line did win the Joe Moore Award for best offensive line in the country, but TCU just really got out. Michigan had the long run first play of the game, like 60 yards, and then they got nothing on the ground. But in the McCarthy kid, Michigan was not built. That's a different thing. I think Michigan's not built for drop back passing game, and you saw that. McCarthy, you'd hit a big one, but then he'd throw a pick six. So Michigan's not built for that. Georgia doesn't really want to do that, but I think they can because at one, I think Stetson Bennett, he's old enough and he's experienced enough. He can do it. And also they got some athletes. Now that they got AD Mitchell back, the receiver. They also got Macaulay Culkin, the kid who's growing up from Home Improvement, the 84 receiver. I think Georgia can throw the ball around. I don't think they want to rely on that like they did against Ohio State, but I think they can. And if TCU has success stopping the run, I think that's what Georgia might have to go against, and it'll just be interesting to see if Georgia's offense can put up points. I do think TCU, if they're not able to run the football a little bit, because Keandre Miller is 50-50, so if he doesn't play, I could see a scenario where Georgia really shuts down the running game, and they're gonna put a lot on Max Duggan, and I think he's gonna see more pressure than he's probably seen all season long. And it's going to be a game. I think it's going to be a game. If TCU wins, it's going to be because Max Duggan had the game of his life. Georgia's going to say, hey, go beat us. And I think he's going to playing good. I don't know if just playing good is going to be good enough. I think he's going to have to play great. And he's capable of doing that. But I think that's what I see Georgia's game plan being: shut down the run and make Max Duggan be Superman to beat us.
Yeah, and Max Duggan's a winner, man. That's a tough kid.
He is.
I tell you what, Sonny Dykes, I'm sure he's glad to be where he's at. And if they go on and win the national championship, it won't even matter. I'm sitting here going, give the kid the ball, the Big 12 championship, see what he can do. That guy's just he's a winner. He's tough. He's old school kind of quarterback. He'd take a hit, get up, and shake you off, and no, I'm fine. And he plays hurt. He plays just dog tired. And I think you're right. I think if it gets to where TCU can't run the football due to injury or just scheme, lack of success, Max Duggan is going to get wore down with Georgia's blitz, all the packages they're going to throw at him, because they're literally, there's going to, pun intended, they're going to turn the dogs loose and make Max Duggan
like they did against Ohio State in the fourth quarter. And here's another factor. CJ Stroud for Ohio State's not a running quarterback, but look how much running success he had against Georgia. Max Duggan is a running quarterback. And if TCU can't run the ball with running backs, if Miller can't go, and then DeMarcado, they don't have a lot of success. And TCU's got a really good offensive line, but this Georgia front seven is, it's the best in the country. Yeah. You might look at that. Max Duggan running the football. It's going to be one of those games like K-State probably. He's going to be so wore out by the fourth quarter because Georgia's going to pressure him. He's going to be running for his life, trying to find out. I could see that playing out where he's going to be so tired in the fourth quarter. And I think that's TCU's recipe for success. Max Duggan's got to be Superman. He can do it, and it's just crazy. You just said – TCU could win the national championship, and think about that. Even 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, I know they're in the Final Four, but TCU's not winning the national championship. Yeah. I see a path. I know they're 13-point underdogs, which I think that spread is crazy. But on paper, Georgia's probably 2 touchdowns better, but Georgia hasn't been perfect by any means. If you look at a lot of their games, they've been really good against when they had to be really good, but.
They're a missed field goal away from watching this from home.
That's true.
And I think one of the keys to TCU, and this is going to sound like, is converting on third down.
Oh, yeah.
Because
always.
Keeping Stetson Bennett and that offense on the sideline, because converting on third downs, you're having success against this defense. And TCU and Max Duggan, that's what they did against Michigan. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, now we score. You get up, and like we said, Stetson Bennett, Georgia doesn't like to have to rely on him to throw it a whole bunch and come from behind and do all this, and like they'll do it. They're fully capable. They're probably the best team in the country, right? But they're a lot more comfortable when they don't have to. And I think converting on third downs using Duggan's legs, Duggan may need to be completely wore out. It's probably going to have to be dog tired like the K-State game to beat this Georgia team. And it very well may happen. And like you said, that's kind of crazy. If you think about it, look at where Gary Patterson had them.
Yeah, they're 5-7 last year.
He deserves and gets a lot of credit.
Yeah,
gets a lot of credit and deserves it because he laid the foundation and got them to where they're at. And look, it's just
pretty wild. It's wild. TCU has a path I can see a scenario where they win this football game. I mean, Georgia's almost 2 touchdown favorite for a reason, but put it this way: 2 weeks ago, if you'd have said TCU wins the national championship, I would have been shocked. And there's no way. Today, the day before the game, you tell me TCU, this time tomorrow after the game, you're like, TCU won it. I could see it and I would believe it. I think they can do it. I don't know if they will. That's just Georgia's Georgia for a reason.
Big mountain to climb.
Yeah, defending national champ. I think Georgia has more complete athletes, weapons. They have a easier path, easier game plan to success. But at TCU could at the same time shut them down. But one thing I wanted to say, watching the college football playoff games, Georgia obviously is a favorite, defending national champ. These teams aren't near as good as the teams last year. And I feel comfortable saying that. I feel like the 2021 Georgia team would beat either 2022 Georgia or TCU by 3 touchdowns. I think that's how good Georgia was last year. I just watching that game between Ohio State and Georgia, I'm like, neither one of these teams are as good as last year. And at least that's what I came across. Michigan's not as good. TCU, I don't think neither one of them are as good as that runner-up Bama team was last year, especially if Bama had both Mitchie and Jameson Williams. So I think the Georgia team last year should be mentioned as maybe the best defense in the history of college football. But that was Davis, my take. Yeah,
guy could just not be blocked. And then I'm, as a Cowboys fan, I'm kind of thankful that guy's not really been playing a whole lot because
right. But also, what's the linebacker from Georgia that he's been out?
Ringo or
Smith? Is that Roquan Smith or Nolan Smith?
Nolan Smith.
Roquan Smith's in the league.
Yeah.
Nolan Smith, who is maybe their best defensive player, he hasn't played the last month or two. So that might be a big reason. But they got Jordan Davis up front is legit.
That was the guy last year. They've got the
that's the guy with the Eagles, but the Carter, Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter.
I mean, he's legit. He'll be a first rounder, maybe a top 5 pick. Keely Ringo's only a sophomore, I think. But he's had
a little sophomore slump, but he's still solid. I mean,
athletically, he's as good as they come. So I expect it to be a pretty good game. I think it will be competitive.
I think TCU is going to be ready to play.
I do too.
Georgia, you got to think what is going to happen if TCU starts turning the ball over or really has trouble moving the ball against this Georgia defense. How are they going to react? How are they going to, when they get punched in the mouth, how are they going to react? Because Stetson Bennett and this Georgia team, the majority of them, they've been there. Kirby Smart, he's been there, right? Kirby Smart is probably going to let Stetson Bennett have the ball in his hand at the end of the championship game, and I keep harping on that because it still blows my mind. But so what's going to happen? Stetson Bennett, we talk about guys like Rodgers and Brady, and I'm not comparing Stetson Bennett saying he's on the same level. What I'm saying he does a good job he keeps his team calm down in these high pressure situations because he's like, hey guys, we've been here before.
Yeah, and what I was impressed with, he's not an all-world quarterback, but he's smart and he's very capable. I mean, he's a Heisman finalist, just like Duggan was. He's a defending national champ. But that final drive, when Georgia had to have a touchdown, he was cool, calm, collected, made the throws, and they ran plays that were easy reads for him, like the corner route to Mitchell for the touchdown that ended up being the game winner. That was a simple read. You knew the coverage they were getting, and it was just a corner. And he had the inside guy run a route that would occupy the corner, and he ran a fake post and then to the corner on the safety. And basically, it was an easy read. If the cornerback drops back, you throw the out route. If he comes up like he did, then you're going to have, as soon as that safety turns around and he's not looking at you, you can throw that ball wherever you need to throw it because the safety's not looking at you. So the chance of getting intercepted is very minimal if they're not looking at you. And he did it, made those reads. The same thing with the pass up to Bowers over the middle. That was a tight window, but they had a really good play calls on that final drive. I was real impressed with that final drive. And so we'll see. We'll see who gets it done.
I've not been this excited for a national championship.
I'm too, because
in a while. And I think it's the underdog. I literally think it's the TCU factor.
That is
because it's.
If this was Georgia Alabama again, I wouldn't really.
It'd be like, who cares?
I'd watch it, but it's. But it has a lot to do with TCU. I mean, the fact that we have a first ever Cinderella, even though they're a Power 5 school, but for football, they're a Cinderella. I mean, they were 5-7 last year, 200-1 odds to win it all. So I think that's a lot to do it, and just to see if they can do it, that'd be pretty something special. I guess let's get to the picks. So this will be a short episode, just talking about the national championship game. We'll record later in the week, and we'll talk about the NFL playoffs coming up this weekend. But we wanted to get the national championship game covered. We have a couple picks. We want to get out there for the game Monday night. Last episode was like a week and a half ago. We did all the bowl games, and we sprinkled in a couple NFL bets. But I was 7-4 in those bowl game picks. So I'm 61-44 on the season, 58%. Jimmy, 3-6 in the bowl games.
Very good. A lot of upsets.
A couple of upsets, a couple of late. The Kansas Arkansas one kind of got you there. Anyway, you're still 55-49 on the season, 53%, still making money. 53% is that threshold. If anybody likes to throw a little money down on some game, 53%. If you can win 53% of your bets, you're in the money every time. So we're still 58 and 53%. We'll take it. I got 3 picks. I think Jimmy's got 3 picks as well. Like I said, I'm kind of torn. The line is 13 right now, and that's just a lot. But what if Georgia wins by 2 touchdowns? So for me, I'm gonna stay away from that one. But I do think I can see a scenario where Georgia has a really good opening drive. I think they're gonna have a good game plan. I think they will have some success early running the football. I do think TCU is going to give them trouble in that regard. But I think I can see a scenario where Georgia is up by a touchdown in the first quarter. So I'm going to take Georgia first quarter -3.
I like that. That's a good bet. I'm staying in the first quarter as well. I'm going under 13.5. I think you've got 2 teams that are going to come out and kind of test each other and see.
I see that. Yep.
Everybody's going to be amped up, especially TCU. Guys going to be running off adrenaline. And I think there's going to be a lot of, maybe trying to hit the home run early from TCU side, maybe even from Georgia's side. I think under 13.5, I could see this being a 7-0, 3-0, maybe quarter, something like that, 6-0. So I think under 13.5 in the first quarter.
Yeah, it's a good bet. And I agree with you. I think it's going to be kind of a fill you out. I think they're going to try to fill each other out.
They'll run some scripted plays, see what they're going to do, see what defenses, and then they're going to adjust and go from there.
Yeah, I can see that happening. My second bet kind of goes along with my logic of my first bet, the first quarter -3. I'm going to take Georgia first half -7.5. I don't love the 7.5, but you can't buy on when you do half bet, first half bets or quarter bets. You can't buy a half a point, which usually I would buy a half a point, no ifs, ands, or but here. But since you can't do that, I still like Georgia first half -7.5. I can see them being up by 10 because I really think TCU is going to struggle to run the football. And I think TCU's game plan is going to be to throw it, but I think they're going to still try to run it in the first half. But I can see a scenario where they get in some 3rd and longs there in the first half, and they're not really too prepared for it. I think they're going to make some second half adjustments. So I can see a scenario where Georgia might be up 17-7, 21, 21-10 at halftime. I can see that kind of scenario. So I'm going to take Georgia first half -7.5.
I'm staying in the first half as well, and I'm going under 31.5 because exactly what you just said. Both teams going to try to establish the run. We got to have some throws, maybe some home run, try at the home run here or there. I like both teams to kind of be able to combat each other's home run throws, break it up. And I think with both teams trying to use the running game to their advantage, I think that just screams the under. And 31.5, like I said, 21-10. It's 31. There's that half a point again. Can't buy it. So yeah, give me first half under 31.5.
Love that bet. Love that bet for all the reasons we said. And I'm gonna for the game. The over under is 64 now. 82% of all bets in Vegas are on the over. And I think the semis, you had both games went over and wasn't close. And you saw Georgia's secondary give up a ton of yards to Ohio State. And I think people see that. I think, Michigan had to score so much to stay with TCU. I think people are responding off the semis and betting over. I don't see it. I think this could be crazy. It might be one I regret. And if I do regret it, that's why they invented live betting. I'm going to try to live bet my way out of it. but I kind of feel good that this is going to be an under game. I feel like Georgia is going to be in control in the first half. And like I said, I think they'll be up by 10, between 10 and 14. I think TCU is going to, they've second half team all year. I think they're going to make some adjustments, both offensively and defensively. I think this will be a fourth quarter game. I can see this game being, within a touchdown. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be competitive. And to me, that screams under. So I'm going to go with Vegas and against the public. I'm going to take the under 64.
I like that. I could see this being like a 31-21, 31-28, something like that game. And that being said, I'm going to bite. I'm going to go TCU plus 13 just for what you said. Second half team all year. Georgia, we saw what they did against Ohio State, having to come back. Ohio State having a lot of success through the air. Max Duggan is a competitor. This TCU team, Cinderella, she got the glass slipper at the end. I don't know if TCU is going to get the glass ball and get the trophy, but I think plus 13, I like that. You could even buy a point and go plus 14 if you want, but I think plus 13 is just fine because I think this is going to be close. And this may even be one of those games where TCU scores late to get it down to underneath 13 or maybe even 2-13.
Yeah, I can see that happening for sure.
But it won't matter. And give me TCU plus 13.
I could definitely see it being a scenario where it's 17-point lead in the fourth quarter and TCU drives down and scores a touchdown to be down 10 and kick an onside. I can see that scenario happen. It concerns me. 55% of the bets are on TCU and getting the points. It's just, that's a big number. And
Two touchdowns in the national championship.
To me,
game.
it just screams who's not taking TCU, and it is only 55%, so that's pretty even. But yeah,
when the lines dropped to 13, so I'm like, okay,
you got to have some cojones, I think, to take Georgia minus 13. I mean, the game's not played on paper. I know preseason paper. This TCU ain't no preseason paper team. I mean, they're legit, So we'll see. All right, 3 bets apiece for you. I will say honorable mention for me. Quentin Johnson, the receiver for TCU, I think his over receiving yards, over under is 81 or 81.5. I would take the over. That's honorable mention for me. I'm not going to give it, but might be one to look at if you can get Quentin Johnson. I could see him getting 100 yards receiving. I could see him having. I think he's the first receiver taking the board because Harrison Jr. from Ohio State's not in the draft. He's only a sophomore. I see Quentin Johnson being the number 1 receiver taken.
Marvin Harrison Jr. is a stud.
Yeah, he is. So looking forward to it. It's going to be a great game. Last college football game of the season. We got to wait till August before we get another college football game. So you got to, you got to cherish it. Hopefully we get a good one. The semis were the best semis we've had in the college football playoff era. And, we hadn't had a repeat winner in the college football playoff era.
Right.
It's only been around since 2014.
Bodes well for TCU.
It does bode well for TCU. We haven't had a team, not ranked make the playoff. We definitely hadn't had a team not ranked preseason, not ranked and win the national championship. So could be a lot of firsts. And I'm just rooting for a good game, rooting for my bets.
Yeah, I'm rooting for these 3 bets to hit.
Yeah, that's what give you a little stake in the game. So, all right, that's Gridiron Grind number 20, national championship preview, Georgia and TCU. We'll be back later this week previewing the NFL playoff games. Till then, see ya.
See ya.